Hi, David Phelps here from the Freedom Founders Mastermind community. As many of you may know, I am ready to release my newest book, Own Your Freedom, Sustainable Wealth for a Volatile World, with my co-author, Mr. Dan Kennedy, October 12th. We have a few pre-release publication books out right now, but the book will be available for order and purchase right now. Books will be shipped to you right after October 12th. Here's what I'd like you to know. We are donating the pre-launch proceeds of this book, sales of the book, to the Marine Corps Law Enforcement Foundation. Now, what's that all about? I'll give it to you in a snippet, and then I want you to watch this video recording I did with Mr. Ed Boren, former Marine back from Vietnam back in the day, and also a former FBI officer. He's got a great story, and he's part of the story of the Marine Corps Law Enforcement Foundation, a foundation that provides scholarships for the children of families where they've lost a parent who has been involved in any aspect of federal law enforcement. It's a great cause, and Freedom Founders, my community, our community, is going to match dollar for dollar the proceeds from the pre-launch book. The book is great. I know I'm a little bit biased. The book is great, though. It's principles for creating and sustaining your own personal freedom for you, for your family, so that you can help others. It's a ripple effect. This is a time in our lives, time in our country right now, where we are going through some massive shifts. I don't have to tell you more than that. Massive shifts. If we don't take charge of our own future so we can help others, how are we going to ever help save the future of this country? Please watch the video, and if it touches your heart, buy some books. Go to ownyourfreedombook.com. That's ownyourfreedombook.com, and pre-order at least a book, pre-order at least a couple. You can buy in bulk order. Love to get this book out, and then also help the great people who have served and are serving our country with scholarships for their children, because they deserve our help. Thank you so much. Today, it is indeed my pleasure to have with us Mr. Ed Boren. Ed, sir, how are you?
I'm doing fine, sir. Thank you. How are you?
Very well.
Good.
Well, the reason we have Mr. Boren here with us is because we're doing a book launch. My recent book that is still in pre-publish will be actually available October 12th, is Own Your Freedom. If you're looking at the screen, you can see the book in the background. This is actually the book, a pre-published book right now, Own Your Freedom, Sustainable Wealth for a Volatile World. Mr. Boren comes from a history of great service to our country, and any American citizen today that understands this country's history and the freedom that we so greatly covet, understand that freedom has not come without a price. Price every day, price going back 250 years when this country was originated. Ed Boren was actually in high school when, actually he was in high school during the Vietnam War. When he was a sophomore in college, he told his mother that he wanted to become a Marine. His mother, as the story is told to me, was not happy about that. She actually cried. But Ed actually had an exemption because his father had passed away, so he didn't have to serve. He wanted to serve. You also had a brother who served in the Army who also passed away. A few months later, your mother resolved and decided, she came back with the Catholic medal with an enameled red, white, and blue border that bore the words sea, air, land, and said, Ed, my son, you may join. And what you say about the Marines is something I've heard from others who have served, Ed. You said what stood out to you was the loyalty and professionalism of the military at that time. It validated your reason and rationale for becoming a Marine. You said, I have no problem at all dying for a Marine. It makes you a brotherhood, and that's what you found to be so enlightening and so motivational to you. Today, and there's more to Ed's backstory. Let me just give you a little bit more, and I'll tell you what he's doing today. Ed is also, so you were in combat in Vietnam for 13 months in 1968 to 69, Marine, Lieutenant Platoon Commander in Vietnam, 2nd Platoon, Delta 1st Battalion, 9th Marines, The Walking Dead, and also retired from the FBI. Today, you serve as co-president of the Marine Corps Law Enforcement Foundation. It's a charity for the children of Marines and members of the federal law enforcement who fell in the line of duty. For the children, these are scholarships of up to $35,000 per child to provide for their health, well-being, education, I think primarily. And the data I have so far, and this may not be up to date, so correct me if I'm wrong, but you've exceeded $78 million and provided benefits to over 4,100 children in families. Now, that number is probably greater than what I have here. Do you want to bring me up to date, Ed, as to where we are?
Yes, right now we are at we're over $85 million that we've expended since 1995, affecting the lives of children and families, 4,500 children and families. So it has increased a little bit, yeah. And if I could clarify the story about my mom.
Yes,
I was
please.
a sophomore when I said to her, Mom, I want to join the Marine Corps. And she cried, and it was just my mom and I. So I says, okay, Mom, what do you want me to do? She says, we've never had anybody in my family graduate from college. Please graduate from college first. So I said, okay, done deal. I will do that. And that's when she went out and she bought this medal, which I have worn ever since.
Wow.
1964, 1965. It says land, air, and sea on the outside. And I have to think that it got me back from Vietnam.
I would have to, yeah, that's such a wonderful story. And certainly understand why it was so difficult for your mother to let her son, in this case, you, go when already it was just you and your mother, as you said. But it all worked out, and you served very well. And today you're serving still the brotherhood of those who stand for this country. So a little bit of history about Marine Corps Law Enforcement Foundation. Began in 1995. So what was the impetus? How did it get started in 1995, Ed?
It got started in 1995 because we got to go back to 1972.
Okay.
I was an FBI agent in Grand Rapids, Michigan, transferred to New York in January of '72. And I'm sitting next to a fellow by the name of Jim Kallstrom, who was also a former Marine, was in Vietnam a year before I was. And what happened was we got to be talking, and Jim Kallstrom was an extraordinary person. He went on to become the assistant director in charge of the FBI office in New York for years. And I don't know if you remember the Flight 800 over Long Island City years ago. They thought it was a missile. They had eyewitnesses to say they saw missiles going up from the Long Island Sound. So Jim Kallstrom was on, he was the individual from the FBI who was on TV 2 or 3 nights a week, reassuring the American people that this was being handled. We don't think it's a missile, but we're going to find out for sure. Rest assured, we're on the job. And what they did was they collected every piece of the plane that was under the water, put it together, and they were able to prove that it was a leak, a fuel leak, and a fire caused because of the leak, and that's what exploded the plane. So that's Jim Kallstrom. And so he's sitting next to me. 3 months later, he forms the FBI Marine Corps Association, which it's like a holiday to a Marine, the Marine Corps birthday, November the 10th. That's our birthday, and we celebrate it every year. So we started off with, on November the 10th, at Camp Smith is where we did our firearms. We invited local law enforcement, state troopers, other federal agents who were former Marines. And within a matter of 2 or 3 years, we had 400 or 500 civilians, former Marines, come to this celebration, which turned into not a 1-day, but a 3-day holiday event. And it was just super. We had the Marine Corps Drummer Bugle Corps came up every year. The Commandant would come up. We had Ted Williams was there for 3 or 4 years. So it was just marvelous. So that went on and got bigger and better until 1995, when I retired from the FBI and Jim retired, I think it was a year after me. And knowing that I was the vice president of the FBI Marine Corps Association and Jim Kallstrom was the president, knowing that it was coming to an end, he, along with two or three other prominent individuals, former Marines, formulated the Marine Corps Law Enforcement Foundation. And that's the history of how we got started.
And so when did you become involved again? I know you're a co-president today, but when did you become involved again with the foundation? Take us back there, if you would.
Since 1995.
95.
I started a golf tournament to support the foundation and did it up until, well, I still do it. I did it last Monday at Huntington Country Club. I still help organize it, and I do one golf tournament a year, and I go to other events across the country. We have about 14 or 15 events across the country. Everybody is a volunteer, and everybody does it for the same reasons, almost the same reasons that I do it, and everybody else does it because we love it, and it's kind of like therapy. So
yes,
yeah, that's where we are right now. And actually, I was the president for the last 10 years, and about a year and a half, 2 years ago, I made John Connor a co-president with me, so he could go out to some of these events as well, and it's worked out great.
So obviously, you know, fundraising for a nonprofit that's serving in the way that you do, that's a huge part of what somebody has to do, and you've been doing it, and Jim Connor doing it as well. So, and how many other volunteers? A lot of volunteers, I guess, all the way down the line. But how many volunteers overall are helping with the foundation?
I couldn't say exact number, but I'm guesstimating it's over 200 because we have 15 events across the country. Philadelphia has a committee of almost 30 people. Atlantic City has 22 people. You know, and then you go out to Arizona, we have a small golf tournament out there. He's got probably 4 or 5, but there's probably close to 200 people across the country because we have some pretty big events, some, you know, just regular golf tournaments where you only have 5 or 6 people that help out. So let me be conservative and say between 150 and 200.
Okay. All right. So 1995, an infamous year for the country as well, the Oklahoma City bombing. That was that perhaps one of the first initiatives in which the foundation provided a number of scholarships, and there was somebody else that I know, you know, a lot of the people in this country respect, a radio personality for 30 some years that also was part of that. Do you want to give a little bit of that background?
Yes. Yes, 1995, we had the Oklahoma City bombing. We didn't have the funds. We had just started. And Rush Limbaugh heard about us trying to help, and he made an appeal on the radio. And because of that, and because of his own personal check, we were able to give scholarship grants to the children of all of the agents that were killed in the Oklahoma City bombing. Yeah. And if I can I talk about Rush Limbaugh for a minute?
I'd love for you to, please.
Okay. This past year, we've lost 3 individuals that have made major impacts on the Marine Corps Law Enforcement Foundation. And probably one of the biggest was Rush Limbaugh. And like I said, back in '95, he got to know us, and he came up to a couple of our events and really got to know us. And then he started to talk about us on the air, maybe in the beginning 2 or 3 times, and I think maybe a couple of years it was 4 times a year. And he would talk about what wonderful work we did, and he would go into specifics, and sure enough, 2 or 3 days later, our mailbox would be jam-packed full of contributions from his listeners who were extremely loyal to him, and as it turned out, to us as well. But he continued that every year. And some years, it was his contributions to his listeners that kept us above water. And anyway, it was a major, major impact to have him pass away. And the other 2 individuals, if I can just to note them, One was a fellow by the name of Pete Haas, who was a sergeant major in the Marine Corps during the Korean conflict. Got out of the Marine Corps and became a success on Wall Street and had his own company. And he and Jim Kallstrom were the two main individuals that started the foundation back in 1995. And Pete Haas was the president of the foundation for 16 years. He retired and he just passed away about 6 months ago at age 93. The last individual and somebody who I idolized was Jim Kallstrom. I worked for him in a New York office as he became a boss for 16 years. And every time I would debrief him as to what I was doing, he would always say, Ed, what can I do to help you? What do you need? You just let me know and you got it. That's the kind of boss that I had. That's the kind of individual Jim Kallstrom was. Just an extraordinary leader, great communicator, and just a fabulous FBI agent. And he was recognized as that, and that's why he made a rapid climb to the top of the office and to become the head of the office. 2,000 agents and 1,500 support personnel. He was just extraordinary. And if I can, I just want to tell you how he passed away. Where he was stationed in 1967 in Vietnam as a lieutenant was an outpost just south of the DMZ. And there was a lot of defoliation going on up there because it was the DMZ and that was the main path for the North Vietnamese to get into the South. And so it was Agent Orange is what it was. That was 1967. So Jim gets out of the Marine Corps, becomes an FBI agent, successful FBI agent. And then 7 years ago, he comes down with Agent Orange, over 50 years later.
Wow.
And it manifests itself as a beet red rash from his waist to his neck and an insatiable itch. Now, Agent Orange is a cancer, so they put him on chemo once a week. That went on for 5 years. It kind of stabilized them and held the cancer in check. And then Jim came down with Lyme disease.
Yeah.
So they had to take him off the chemo to treat the Lyme disease with heavy antibiotics. And by the time that the Lyme disease was in check, which was like 8 or 9 months, it had taken its toll on Jim and never really bounced back. And he died about 4 months ago with a battle with cancer. Anyway, I just had to tell you that, and hopefully for your listeners as well. Those are the three main individuals that made a major impact on the Marine Corps Law Enforcement Foundation, and that's where we are today.
Well, Ed, thanks for sharing that story. I know I can just tell talking to you. You know, that still is very emotional for you, as it should be. These are people that you served with and served for many years, and without their sacrifice or willingness to sacrifice all these years, so much would be lost in this country. This country is built on the men and women who are willing to do what it takes. So I'll say thank you to you here, and thank you to the many people who serve in so many ways, and today with the Marine Corps Law Enforcement Foundation. One additional person of note, I know there's been many, but President Donald Trump, I think in 2016, also came forward and provided some funds to help a particular opportunity for the foundation to serve. You want to give our listeners a little bit of that story?
Well, as I know it, Jim was our guest of honor at our gala, our annual gala in Cipriani's in New York City. And he was very gracious. He had been giving us checks for like 150,000, 100,000, basically for about 4 years or 5 years. And then we had him as our guest of honor. And I guess he found out more about the foundation than he had previously known because of the previous listeners, but he then presented us with a check for $1 million. Yes. Um, very, very gracious, obviously. Yes.
I'm speaking today with Mr. Ed Boren. The reason we are talking today is because with the book that is launching in just a few weeks, October 12th, Own Your Freedom, we wanted to do something to create an impact. And through our research, we found Ed and the Marine Corps Law Enforcement Foundation, and all the proceeds from our pre-launch, which happens from now up until October 12th, we're donating those to the Marine Corps and Law Enforcement Foundation. You can pre-order the book at ownyourfreedombook.com. Again, that's ownyourfreedombook.com. You can pick it up on Amazon as well. And let's talk a little bit about the families. 35,000, is it 35,000 for every child that you were able to provide us a scholarship? Is that how it works? Give us a little bit of the context.
Yeah. All right. In 1995, we started the foundation, and the mission was giving financial grants to children of Marines, Navy corpsmen, and federal law enforcement officers who have lost their lives while serving this great country. We've expanded that a little bit under our humanitarian umbrella. We now, if we get a notification that there were a state trooper that was killed tragically leaving kids, we will give that children scholarship grants as well. We also have under that humanitarian umbrella the ability to help out Marine Corps families and local law enforcement families that have financial needs because of some tragedy in their life or some illness. That's what we do. We take care of them as well, and as much as possible financially. We will dig them out of their hole, but that's what we do. And as I said, to date, we're over 85 million, affecting the lives of over 4,500 children and families. Yeah.
That's terrific. How are you made? How's the foundation made aware of those families who have lost a parent who's been in service? How are you made aware?
Marine Corps, we have established relationships with Marine Corps headquarters. Upon the death of any Marine, we get notification. I shouldn't say any Marine, Marines that have children. Mm-hmm. We have somebody down there, Tammy, that notifies us within 48 hours of the death and the fact that they have 2 children, 3 children, whatever. And she gives us the information, and then we reach out to somebody. Actually, she gives us a person to notify who knows the widow or widower. And that's how we establish it. We send one form to that person to get filled out. And based on that, and the fact that Tammy told us he's a former Marine, bingo, it's $35,000 per child within 5 or 6 days of notification of death.
Wow.
And now state troopers, federal law enforcement officers, over the years, we've established a relationship, somebody in each one of those foundations, each one of those law enforcement agencies that will notify us the same way Tammy does, the death of an agent out in Chicago, and here's the information. They give us, we call it a Keiko. It's somebody to assist us to get that information, that personal information, the dates of birth, the social security numbers of the children, so we could deposit $35,000 in an account and waiting for that widow to make the phone call so she can become the custodian of her children's money and start to invest it. So by the time that child is 18, hopefully that child would use that money to go to college.
Very good. I know with as many families and children that you have provided these scholarships for, there are, well, obviously thousands and thousands of stories. What's one story that you could tell us today about a young person who lost their parent and had the scholarship? Could you give us like one story that comes to mind for you about them coming back and saying what it meant to them to have this additional support?
Well, last week, I went to Dallas, Texas for their annual dinner. And they, from the podium, thanked me, but thanked the foundation for taking care of one of their own. He was a state trooper, um, Chad Walker. Chad Walker was his name. And he has four children. And he was on the job. He stopped the car, walked up to the car, and the driver had a pistol out, shot him right in the head and killed him. We heard about that, and we give $100,000 to the family. He wasn't a former Marine, otherwise he would have been given $35,000 per child. But because he was a law enforcement officer dying tragically, we gave $100,000 for the four children. So that's the one that rings a bell because it just happened.
So recent, yeah.
Recent, yeah.
There's somebody else in Dallas that you know that you go way back with, back to Vietnam. I read about that. Mr. Willis Turner. Did you get to see him last week by chance?
I didn't. We had a chair. He was supposed to be at my table, and what happened is his granddaughter in California got sick, was in the hospital, and I just got this brief message. So he had to cancel out, and he's still in California because of, every day I send him a text and how's everything going. He said, oh, things are okay. But anyway, he's an individual that I looked for probably 40 something years. And as an FBI agent, I couldn't locate him because he was a moving target and he kept on moving from town to town. So anyway, in the last couple of years, I was able to reach him because my son is a Secret Service agent and he was able to find him. And it's been a great reunion.
Now you're connected and you communicate on a regular basis.
Yes, we do. He's supposed to bring his daughter up last summer to stay with me in the city and visit New York City, but because of the COVID,
yeah.
And the same thing happened, well, this year as well. So yeah. Hopefully we'll get to see each other more often.
Yeah. Yeah.
Actually, I want to just add one other thing,
Please.
and that is I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for for Willis Turner. He was a corporal when I took over the platoon, but I recognized in him right away leadership ability, and I made him a sergeant within the first month or two, and he became my platoon sergeant. And he was so street smart, so jungle smart. That's why I'm here today. That's why most of the individuals in my platoon are here today too, as well. Yeah.
Well, heroes all of you, all the men and women who have served, the brotherhood, the sacrifice for our great country, as you said. Once again, we are donating the pre-sale proceeds of the book between now and October 12th to the Marine Corps Law Enforcement Foundation. And my community, who all love and back this country and the people who serve, we're going to match dollar for dollar everything that comes in. We're going to match it, Ed. So whatever comes in from people who buy the book or books, we're going to match that. So we'll have some funds for you sometime after October 12th. So if you're listening today, you'd like to get a book that I believe really speaks to principles. It's not a political book. It speaks to principles of freedom. Certainly, Ed and the people that have served with him understand principles of freedom. This is one for people that are citizens who want to help you create and maintain your personal sovereignty, so that hopefully you as citizens, leaders for your family, your community, wherever you want to serve our great country, you can also create your freedom, because if you can't do that for yourself, then how can you serve other people? So Ed Bourne, I just want to thank you so much again for your service, your sacrifice, all that you're doing today for the families who have fallen parents who served in our country in the federal law enforcement agency. We'll talk to you soon, and again, appreciate so much you being here.
If I can add just one last thing, and that is we only have one part-time employee. Her name is Sue Belosa, and she's the brains of the outfit. And she runs the office, takes care of all the administration work. Everybody else, I think I've said already, is a volunteer just like me. But anyway, on that note, thank you very, very much for thinking of us and for your kind words about us. And God bless you, and hopefully all well with your new book.
Thank you so much, Ed.
God bless you, sir. Take care. Semper Fi.
Semper Fi.
Thank you.